Hello and welcome to Speak English with Vaibhav. I'm your host Vaibhav, and today's episode is going to be incredibly insightful for anyone who's ever wondered about introverts and extroverts, who they are, what drives them, and how these personality types affect our everyday lives. To help me unpack this fascinating topic, I have a special guest today, Ria, a psychologist and self-improvement trainer with deep expertise in understanding human behavior. Welcome, Ria.
Hi Vaibhav, thanks for having me on your show. I'm really excited to dive into this topic. It's something we encounter every day, whether we realize it or not.
Absolutely. So many people identify as either introverts or extroverts, but often these labels are misunderstood. Before we get into the details, I just want to say to our listeners, we're going to break down everything you need to know, from the science behind these traits to real-life tips on how to thrive as an introvert or extrovert. Plus, we'll be giving practical solutions on how to balance relationships, work environments, and much more. Ria, let's start with a simple but important question. What exactly are introverts and extroverts? Can you define these terms for our audience?
Of course. So, introverts and extroverts are personality types that describe where a person gets their energy from. Introverts feel more energized by spending time alone or in quieter environments. They enjoy reflecting deeply, tend to think before they speak, and often prefer meaningful one-on-one conversations over large social gatherings. Extroverts, on the other hand, thrive in social settings. They get energized by interacting with others, love being in the center of attention, and tend to be more outgoing and spontaneous.
That makes sense. But are there common misconceptions that people have about these personality types?
Definitely. One of the biggest misconceptions is that introverts are shy or antisocial, and that extroverts are always confident and outgoing. In reality, introverts can be very social, but they might prefer smaller, more intimate groups. And extroverts, while they may appear outgoing, can also feel self-conscious or insecure at times. It's also important to remember that introversion and extroversion aren't black and white categories. They're more of a spectrum. Most people fall somewhere in between with tendencies from both sides.
That's a great point, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to being in the middle of that spectrum, maybe feeling like an ambivert. Is that a real thing?
Yes, ambiverts are people who have a mix of both introverted and extroverted tendencies. They can switch between enjoying social interactions and needing alone time depending on the situation. Being an ambivert means you have the flexibility to adapt in different environments.
Now let's get a bit deeper into the science behind these traits. Ria, can you tell us what's going on in the brain of an introvert versus an extrovert? Is there a biological reason why some people prefer quiet environments while others love big parties?
Great question, Vaibhav. Yes, there's actually a lot of science behind it. One of the most interesting findings is the role of brain chemistry in determining whether someone is more introverted or extroverted. Introverts generally have higher cortical arousal, which means their brains are more sensitive to external stimuli. This is why introverts might feel overwhelmed or drained in noisy, chaotic environments. Extroverts, on the other hand, have lower baseline cortical arousal, so they seek out external stimulation like socializing to feel energized. In fact, studies show that extroverts respond more positively to dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with the reward and pleasure. This makes them more likely to enjoy activities like parties or high energy gatherings because their brains are wired to seek out these dopamine hits.
That's fascinating. So it's not just a preference, it's something rooted in our biology.
Exactly. Another interesting aspect is how introverts and extroverts process information differently. Introverts often have a more active prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for deep thinking, problem solving, and planning. This is why introverts may prefer more thoughtful, introspective activities, while extroverts may enjoy fast paced, reactive environments.
Wow, that really explains a lot. I've read in Susan Cain's Quiet, The Power of Introverts, that society often values extroverted traits more, especially in Western cultures. Is that true?
Yes, that's a major theme in Kane's book. She calls it the extrovert ideal series, where traits like assertiveness, talkativeness, and charisma are often celebrated, especially in workplaces and schools. This can lead introverts to feel like they need to fix themselves or act more extroverted to fit in, which is unfair because both personality types have unique strengths.
I imagine this can be quite stressful for introverts, feeling pressured to act in ways that go against their nature.
It can be. For introverts, this constant pressure can lead to burnout, anxiety, and feeling inauthentic. However, it's important for introverts to embrace their strengths, like their ability to focus deeply, think critically, and build strong, meaningful relationships.
Let's talk about the challenges each personality type faces in their daily lives. What challenges do introverts commonly encounter in a world that often seems to reward extroverts?
One of the biggest challenges for introverts is dealing with overstimulation. Because their brains are already highly sensitive, environments with lots of noise, people, or activity can feel overwhelming. This can make social events, large meetings, or even crowded places mentally exhausting for them. Another challenge is the social expectations to speak up or be more outgoing. Many workplaces, for example, encourage extroverted behaviors like public speaking, networking, or participating in group discussions, which can be uncomfortable for introverts. The pressure to conform to extroverted norms can sometimes make introverts feel undervalued.
I can definitely see how that would be tough. Now, what about extroverts? While they may seem to fit into social settings more easily, do they face challenges as well?
Absolutely. Extroverts can struggle with introspection and the need for solitude. They tend to rely on external stimulation to feel energized, which means they might find it difficult to be alone with their thoughts for extended periods. This can lead to difficulty reflecting or making deeper connections with themselves. In relationships, extroverts might sometimes overwhelm introverts with their need for constant socializing or talking. It's important for extroverts to recognize when their partner or friend needs space and quiet.
That's a good point. So both personality types have their own set of challenges, but they also have strengths that can complement each other, right?
Exactly. When introverts and extroverts work together or are in relationships, their different strengths can balance each other out beautifully. Introverts bring depth, focus, and thoughtfulness, while extroverts bring energy, social connection, and enthusiasm.
Let's move on to the part I'm sure many of our listeners are waiting for, the practical tips. Rhea, can you share some tips for introverts on how they can navigate a world that often seems extrovert-centric?
Sure, here are some key strategies for introverts to thrive. Embrace your strengths. Don't feel like you need to be the loudest voice in the room to make an impact. Use your deep thinking and problem-solving abilities to contribute in meaningful ways. Set boundaries. It's important to know your limits. Don't be afraid to say no to social events or meetings when you need time to recharge. Let people know that you need quiet time to be at your best. Leverage one-on-one interactions. Introverts often excel in intimate conversations where they can engage deeply. Focus on building strong one-on-one relationships instead of trying to be part of every group. Prepare for social situations. If you have to attend a big event, mentally prepare yourself. Know that you can leave early if you start to feel drained and seek out quieter spaces if needed. Asterisk.
Those are really helpful tips. What about extroverts? How can they find balance, especially in situations that may require more introspection or calm?
Here are some strategies for extroverts. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness exercises like meditation can help extroverts become more comfortable with stillness and introspection. It allows them to recharge in quieter settings, which is essential for long-term mental health. Respect introverts' boundaries. Understand that not everyone gets energized by socializing. Be mindful of your friends, partners, or colleagues who may need space to recharge. Develop listening skills. Extroverts often dominate conversations, so practicing active listening can strengthen relationships. It's important to give others space to express themselves, especially introverts who may be more hesitant to speak up. Create balance in social life. While extroverts love being around people, it's crucial to find a balance between socializing and alone time. Engage in activities that allow for personal growth and introspection, like journaling or reading. Asterisk.
Those are really helpful tips. What about extroverts? How can they find balance, especially in situations that may require more introspection or calm?
Here are some strategies for extroverts. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness exercises like meditation can help extroverts become more comfortable with stillness and introspection. It allows them to recharge in quieter settings, which is essential for long-term mental health. Respect introverts' boundaries. Understand that not everyone gets energized by socializing. Be mindful of your friends, partners, or colleagues who may need space to recharge. Develop listening skills. Extroverts often dominate conversations, so practicing active listening can strengthen relationships. It's important to give others space to express themselves, especially introverts who may be more hesitant to speak up. Create balance in social life. while extroverts love being around people. It's crucial to find a balance between socializing and alone time. Engage in activities that allow for personal growth and introspection, like journaling or reading. Asterisk.
Let's talk about real life scenarios. How can introverts and extroverts thrive in the workplace, especially if they're working together on a team?
In the workplace, it's important to create environments that cater to both personality types. Introverts may prefer roles that allow them to work independently and focus deeply, like research or writing, while extroverts may thrive in roles that require a lot of interaction, like sales or leadership. When working together, teams can benefit from their complementary strengths. Introverts can contribute thoughtful, well researched ideas, while extroverts can bring those ideas to life through effective communication and networking.
That's a great way to look at it. What about in personal relationships? How can introverts and extroverts balance their different needs?
In personal relationships, communication is key. And introverts need to feel comfortable asking for quiet time when they need it, and extroverts should understand that it's not a rejection. It's just how introverts recharge. On the flip side, introverts can support extroverts by being open to social events or activities that bring energy and excitement into the relationship. It's all about compromise and understanding each other's needs.
Now for something fun. Ria, let's talk about our own personalities. Would you consider yourself an introvert, extrovert, or somewhere in between?
I'd say I'm an ambivert. I love being around people and teaching, but I also need my alone time to recharge. How about you, Vaibhav?
I'm definitely more introverted. I enjoy deep, meaningful conversations, but after a long day of socializing, I need to recharge in a quiet space. Ria, this has been such an insightful conversation. Before we wrap up, what's the one takeaway you'd like our listeners to leave with today?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is that both introverts and extroverts are valuable in their own ways. Don't try to change who you are to fit someone else's mold. Embrace your strengths, whether that's in quiet reflection or enthusiastic socializing.
Wise words. And I think we all benefit when we understand and respect each other's personality traits. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ria.
It was a pleasure, Vaibhav. I hope this conversation helps our listeners understand themselves and the people around them a little better.
I'm sure it will. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of Speak English with Vaibhav, where we'll continue diving into interesting topics while helping you improve your English skills. See you soon.